Hey, good evening. Welcome to Raconteurs News. I've moved my camera. Look, it's up there somewhere. So if I feel like I'm not looking at you and I'm looking down, it's because I've moved my camera so that I could accommodate and you can see these things here that I've put up. There's St. Pauli flag, St. Pauli scarf that I got from Dinny via Super Leads, and a clock. If you see the clock up there, I made that myself. It's really wonky and off. All numbers are off. I was totally rubbish at making clocks. So sorry about that, everybody, especially if you're a clock fan, which I know Ron is. Yeah. So, yo, Jason, St. Pauli. Yeah, of course. Good evening, anyway. Welcome to Raconteurs News. Hope you've had a very good weekend. Me and Colin have had a good weekend. As you can see, he's there in his in my leg. He's trying to use my leg. He's ever since I've won, he wants to put one on. Anyway, we've got a very interesting guest for tonight, so I'm not going to waffle on too much. Just suffice it to say, I've missed the last 2 Fridays after dark, so I've got like 2 weeks worth of material. It's all pouring out of me, my little book and everything. So I'm definitely going to do one this week. So please. I am sorry if you've been looking that you were looking forward to them and we didn't turn up. But this last couple of weeks, my wife's come home on a Friday and she's had a bad time at work and stuff like that. So basically, what I've done is we've done a bit of regression therapy with her, and I've just been watching. We've been watching some old 80s music videos and stuff like that, and just relaxing and reminiscing and things. So that's the reason why. It's a good enough reason, I hope. But if not, it might not be for you. But I'll be back on Friday. Anyway, let's get into tonight's show. We've got a marvelous guest this evening. Recently on Webby's show. There we go, Clive de Carle. Good evening, Clive. You can unmute your mic now. I think we'll be okay.
Hello there. Good to see you again, Jason. Nice to be here.
And yourself. How are you? Have you had a good weekend?
I'm having a great time. Life's going extremely well, and then before you know it, along comes a bloody apocalypse.
Yeah, and I understand that one completely. Yeah, an apocalypse. I guess. Can I see a guitar behind you? Are you a bit of a guitar player?
No,
Bit of a musician, or is that a background?
No, it's one of my daughters. That one.
Oh, is it? Okay. You've got a guitar that's a daughter.
Well, yeah, not you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. Anyway, listen. Hello to everybody who's in the chat room. Jerry's in there, Ron. Dinny's in there as usual. Newbie, Sean Hamer, Jerry, son of Mick. I'll give you all a shout out. Donna and Matt Carey, of course. Uni's in there as well. Uni Black Sister. Big thanks to Uni for helping me out last week with the interview with Francis Richard Conley. So let's get into tonight's show before we sort of digress onto something else. Don't want to do that, do we, Carl? Perhaps for everybody that's not quite as familiar with you as many people are, I'm going to include myself in that. I'm not as familiar as I probably should be, but I always like to try and interview people when I don't know anything. And then I can ask a question that somebody who's never heard you might ask. You understand what I'm saying. So, evening, Clive. I want you to, first of all, just give us a little bit of a background of your past and how you got into what you're doing now and what it is you do now.
All right. What I do now is I teach people what health is, because that's a subject that doctors know nothing about. They don't study health. They study drugs, medicine, surgery, maybe, but nobody's low on a pharmaceutical drug, but everybody really pretty much is low on nutrition. Pretty much everybody is toxically poisoned one way or another. And lots of people, unfortunately, have been physically damaged. And there are only 3 reasons why people get ill: physical damage, toxic poisoning, nutrient deficiency. So none of us are low on a drug. Therefore, what do we need to do? Well, we need to detoxify and go backwards to look at what our ancestors ate, because they didn't poison themselves. 1850 was really when poisoning started big time in the world. They introduced in America cottonseed oil, and they said this will be good for cooking with. Unfortunately, it turned out to be poisonous, but it was the start of the denaturing, the serious denaturing of food, where money took over from health. You know, when I was young, I'm 67, when I was young, cream, the whole definition of the word, meant the best, the cream of the crop, the fat of the land. You know, the idea was that fatty foods were good for you, that all the natural products from cows and sheep and so on were, well, 150 years ago, 170 years ago now, they didn't pasteurize milk. That came in around that time. I'm not sure exactly when. And it meant that the shelf life of milk went up by, from, let's say, 6 days, maybe, if it was cold enough, to several weeks. And so I'd been interested from a very young age with health, strangely. I had this weird thing happen to me. I was at home and I was watching BBC Two on television when I was about 15, I think, maybe 14. And there was a program about type 1 diabetes. And I had this deep sort of knowing go through my body that I'd be type 1 diabetic. It was extraordinary and frighteningly powerful experience. Anyway, some years later, I'm about 31, 32, and I'm embarrassed because at that age, I've got some spots on my chin, and I should have started eating better, but I didn't. And I made the mistake of taking an antibiotic, which a doctor told me would fix that right away. And unfortunately, it fixed me. It didn't fix the spots. It made me type 1 diabetic, the very thing that I'd had the notion about many years earlier. And I became arthritic, so arthritic that I couldn't drive my car anymore. I couldn't go into work anymore. And then one morning, I realized I was stranded in my bed. I no longer had the strength, and I couldn't get over the pain that would involve getting out of bed. I tried to get dressed, couldn't. I tried to do buttons, I couldn't. And I realized that luckily I had somebody there to help me, but otherwise I would have been stuck there. Could have died in bed right there and then. So they took me into hospital, and I was there for weeks, and they gave up on me. They said, well, there's nothing we can do. I wouldn't accept the drugs they were offering me because I told them I'm not low on drugs. That's drug shortage is not my problem. But after several weeks in hospital, I worked out that I was low on minerals, magnesium in particular. And fast forward a year and a half, all the ugly arthritis is gone. I'm as right as rain. Yes, I've still got the type 1 diabetes, but nevertheless, I realized that the doctors didn't know what they were doing as far as I was concerned. And then the further down the rabbit hole I went, the more I realized that actually I know more about health than doctors. And so I started just totally immersing myself. I'd sold a company, so I had the luxury of the time to study. And about 20 years ago or so, I started, if you like, practicing what, the beginnings of what I do. And I realized that most people are ill when there's an incredibly easy answer. So over the years, I've tried to be more and more focused in explaining to people what it takes to recover one's health.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple of things I just want to talk that I just want to pick up on in what you were saying. The milk being pasteurized. Now, when I had a conversation, I'm 51. My mother was 17 when she had me, so she's only 17 years older. 68. So I had an argument because I talked to her about raw milk, and she said that if you drank raw milk, you would get a certain illness. There was a certain illness associated with raw milk, and whether or not that was used at the time as sort of like, as we're being beaten now with certain things, we were beaten then, that if this didn't happen, then everybody would catch this disease. Are you aware of that?
Well, Some years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I don't remember, I was touring England giving talks, and I decided I'd stay at dairy farms. And the first one I went to, I knew I was getting close because I could smell it, and it smelled terrible. It was like a B&B, farm B&B. And when I arrived, I said, "Right, what type of cows have you got?" And I said, "Well, can I drink some of the raw milk? Could I try the raw cream?" And they said, "Oh no, absolutely not. We've had 3 outbreaks of brucellosis here in the last couple of years. There's no way you'd want to do that." Now, it was obvious why they got brucellosis, because they were keeping their cows in unsanitary conditions. You put cows in a field spread out at the right distance, not too many in a field, and there is no smell. There's this conference going on in Glasgow about cows farting and methane, right? I mean, this is so crazy. You sit for half an hour at the back of a cow, it's not that bad. You sit for half an hour at the back of a lorry, you're probably dead. There are so many myths about cows, and one of them is about pasteurization. All these stories about death and illness are to do with bad farming practices, but mainly it's shelf life. They don't want to, they don't want to throw the stuff away. I mean, let me give you another example. Raw milk, at the end of its time, after 6 days or so, it goes sour. It becomes sour milk, and it's fine. But pasteurized milk, at the end of its 3 weeks life, goes rotten. Instead of just changing form into just sour milk, it goes rotten. And if you took pasteurized milk and fed it to a newborn cow, that cow would not thrive, because milk is alive. It's white blood cells. It's a living, bacterial-rich food. But by pasteurizing it, you've killed any life that was there. And we are so obsessed by this idea of a bacteria-free world. But I mean, let me ask you, who are you? Or a better question would be, what are you? Well, you're however many trillion human cells, outnumbered 10 to 1 by bacteria, outnumbered 100 to 1 by the genes, the DNA. What is your DNA primarily? Well, it's bacteria. And we live in symbiosis with funguses, with bacteria. Look at the very energy cells of our body. The mitochondria in each cell provide our energy. Mitochondria isn't you. Mitochondria are not human cells. They just happen to be, if you like, a life form, or I don't quite know how to describe it, that makes us up. We are very, very interesting self-repairing machines. An example that I think is really appropriate is that if you cut your finger, if you're really fit and healthy, by tomorrow morning that the cut's probably fixed itself. But if you're at the end of life and you're very weak, it may take weeks, or it might fester until you die. It may not recover. But nevertheless, if you're healthy, you know what to do with a cut in your finger. You don't pour Coca-Cola in it, or pour coffee on it, or rub food into it. You leave it alone, keep it sterile, job done. You break your fingernail, you know what to do. You don't rush and say, I need a false fingernail. It'll regrow in a few days. If you got a cavity in your tooth, you know what to do. It's the same as the cavity on your finger. Leave it alone. Keep it sterile. Don't rub food and shove things in that new cavity. Let's say you wake up and bam, oh, my tooth hurts. You got a cavity, right, for the first time. You don't want to rush to the dentist. You just want to stop eating and drinking, except for water or whatever it might be, cucumber juice or something. And within a very short time, your tooth will regrow. You're grinding your teeth down all the time. Your teeth are regrowing at an incredibly fast rate. So if you haven't been paying attention, you've been eating way too much sugar, maybe you've run low on zinc, or whatever it is that's happened, you can repair teeth. You don't need a dentist, not at the start. But if you go to a dentist once and they drill and fill, well, that's a third of your tooth gone right away. You only had a teeny tiny pinprick of a hole maybe, but you go to the dentist and they know what they're doing. They know you'll be back and back and back.
Yeah, I was interested in what you were talking about magnesium as well. I'm not in very good health. Let's just say I'm not in very good health, and earlier on this year I've got problems with my hands. And the doctor said something about magnesium, so he gave me these magnesium supplements that I would take in every day. It didn't, but it didn't seem to do anything. I'm now having I've had a couple of scans and things to see what's caused this numbness in my hands. But I've still got tons of magnesium left. So would you recommend I take magnesium and continue to take it?
Okay, well, the vast majority of doctors, almost all of them, have never studied magnesium. It's not on the curriculum. They don't study. Well, I found out, and many doctors have confirmed this with me in America and in the UK, that on average, a doctor in their 5 years of study spend 4 hours over 5 years studying health. That includes magnesium and everything else. So the doctors don't know what they're doing. Now, you want to give somebody a supplement of magnesium. In the old days, you might have gone to take the waters. You go to a magnesium-rich spa. Most of the health spas around Europe used to be magnesium. Some were sulfur, but most of them were magnesium bars. So traditionally, people who had aching joints and pain and limping would hang out in the warm waters of the spa for a week or two, and all the arthritis would go away, all the osteo problems would disappear, because magnesium dissolves calcium. So what happens to us? Well, we get calcified. We might have calcified arteries, might have calcified joints, and you can see it in arthritic people. They've got all these knobbly bits around their joints. And so some doctors know this, that magnesium is the answer. So what do? They look up what magnesium they're meant to give, and they give the wrong type, because you've got to remember that doctors are trained by the pharmaceutical industry primarily. So they're taught drugs. They're not taught cures or causes, really. They're taught treatments. So if they do give magnesium, they will almost certainly give you magnesium oxide, which is not going to work. It might sort out your constipation, but if you want to reverse something like rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, you need the right type of magnesium and the right amount. Now, most people, if they're given magnesium, they might take 1 a day or 2 a day. Maybe if they're really up, they know that they need a minimum of 4 a day, really, probably, to get the minimum daily allowance. But hopefully some people are getting some magnesium from food. But if people are really low, and by the time you got to an arthritic stage or aches and pains stuff, back issues, joint issues, hip issues, whatever it might be, you might need 12 capsules of the right stuff. Now, if you take 4 magnesium oxides, you probably end up with diarrhea, because that's what it's famous for moving the bowels. So lots of people, I tried magnesium, or the doctors did a blood test, and blood tests don't work for magnesium. Doctors don't know that. So many people are fooled by the idea that they think that they've successfully tried magnesium, and that wasn't the answer, when so often it is. But there are other answers. Some people are low on the mineral sulfur, which you get from eating eggs and ginger and garlic and cruciferous vegetables. Some people are low on vitamin K2, which you get from proper pasture-raised animal products. Some cheeses. If a cow is grazed in the spring, lush spring grass, there's lots of K2, and it's been well known for 100 years that one of the keys to healthy teeth, not getting cavities, is having enough vitamin K2 in your diet. And so all vegans, unless vegans are eating natto or taking a supplement, vegans are all low on K2. They're in real trouble. and they don't know it because people don't know much about K2. And then the vegans, by the way, are often also low on the amino acid taurine, which is Taurus, the bull, taurine, and it's about the eyes. But most crucially, they're low on vitamin B12. And it may take 10 years of being a vegan before they really run out of B12. But the doctors don't know that a B12 deficiency can mimic stuff. B12 deficiency can mimic multiple sclerosis. And people have been B12 deficient, but got a diagnosis from the doctor that you've got MS, Parkinson's, dementia, all can be B12 deficiencies. And so there's so much stuff that people need to know that actually is quite simple in a way. We only need so many vitamins, so many minerals, so many essential fats, and so many amino acids that our bodies can self-repair. And it's not that difficult in a lot of cases to actually realize oneself, oh my God, I'm low on this, or I'm low on that. And I give you lots of examples if you want.
Go on.
Well, some people have this thing where they've got brain fog. They're not thinking as sharp and as clearly as they used to. And the symptoms might include walking into a room and completely forgetting why you walked in. That would be a decent symptom of it. It might be that you can't remember where your car keys are all the time. It might be that you get cold hands and feet more than most people. People shake your hands. Oh, your hands are cold. You might wear socks in bed. Or it might be the other way around. People shake your hands. Oh, your hands are so hot. You're running hot. Menopausal women often run hot. And sometimes it can be dry skin that is the symptom. Often it can be a thyroid issue. Anybody who's got a thyroid issue, I would be willing to bet small amounts of money. The chances are they're low on iodine. And that's the reason why they had a thyroid issue initially. I need to say for legal reasons that because I'm not a doctor, I can't give medical advice.
Yeah.
I study health, so I can give health advice, but that's very different to what the doctors do. The doctors aren't taught health. It's called the health service, but really a disease management service, really. So, also, if I mention the words cure or cancer, for legal reasons, I'm spelling both words with a K.
Okay, that's fine. we'll call everything with a C, a K tonight. I think it's all with a K. If it begins with C, I think you know where I'm going with that, don't you?
Absolutely, yes.
Somebody's asked in the chat room, what type of magnesium should we use then?
Okay, well, there are a number of good choices out there. There are probably 50 magnesium salts that you could be choosing. On my website, I've got 3 types. I've got magnesium chloride, which comes in a liquid form, and Dead Sea salts is basically magnesium chloride. And you don't have to have a bath in the stuff. You can put a kilo of the Dead Sea salts in the bath and wallow in it for half an hour. Or you could go to a spa, or you could just rub it in where it's hurting. I had somebody the other day who'd got real pain in their fingers. And I said, look, why don't you just experiment for a day or two? Why don't you rub in the magnesium chloride into your hands every half an hour, every hour, whenever you want. Just do it over and over and over again. They rang me up, I think, 24 hours later or something like that. Say, yeah, it's all freed up. They were so low on magnesium, but it took a lot of times to do it. Now, they could have done it. When I recovered from the arthritis 35 years ago, it took me a year and a half because I was taking, I can't remember, 2 magnesiums a day, so it took ages. But had I now know what I know and was taking 12 magnesiums a day for a short time, I would have got over it much, much more quickly. So then I've got another one called L-threonate, and L-threonate is sort of famous because people say that it's the one that gets through the blood-brain barrier the easiest. So if you've got neurological issues or depression, that's a good one. But the one that I use myself is just a blend And the major ingredient in the blend that I like is magnesium bisglycinate. But I've got some taurinate in there for the vegans and the eyes. I've got malate in there, which has lots of properties. And, each form of magnesium has certain ways that it really works best in certain areas. But actually, with the blend, or with all of them work, basically. But magnesium is wonderful. It's number one, as far as I'm concerned. Well, it saved my life. It absolutely saved my life. If I'd listened to the doctors, I would have been dead 30 years ago. And even now I take magnesium. And let me run through the magnesium deficiency symptoms. It could be arthritis, any sort of muscular joint pain thing, any deterioration of joints. If you're getting heart arrhythmia, atrial fibrillation, the heart beating out of rhythm or racing for no particular reason. If you have heart attacks, if you're constipated, if you get hiccups, if you get cramps, you stretch in the morning and your calves or your feet go into a spasm, a cramp, and it's really painful. Women who are getting menstrual cramps, quite a lot of seizures or magnesium deficiency, twitches around the eyes, magnesium deficiency, depression can be, poor sleep can be. How many people are low on magnesium? Well, just like iodine, I would say 95% of everybody. Why? Because it's not in the food anymore, generally, because it's been stripped out of the soil. And stress means that you burn magnesium as a response to stress, because what magnesium does is it relaxes you. That's one of the great things. They say that stress is the big killer, don't they?
Yeah.
But actually, is it stress that's doing it, or is it the fact you've burnt up your magnesium? If you think about football players or marathon runners, they drop down dead at heart attacks sometimes at the end of the race or the match. Why is that? Because they've sweated so much that the magnesium has been sweated out. And when you've sweated out the last drop of magnesium, your heart can't relax and you're having a heart attack because your heart just can't unbeat, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And so an intelligent emergency room doctor who understands magnesium, if somebody's having a heart attack, they'll inject them with magnesium sulfate right away. And in a second or two, the heart will relax and the heart attack will end. It can be similar with strokes. Magnesium is amazing. So you can imagine why it works with constipation. You take enough magnesium, your bowels are so relaxed that you're in the bathroom whether you want to be or not. With your mind, people who are depressed, it just relaxes the mind. And maybe people are getting stress headaches. Well, you can relax your whole body. So it's incredibly useful. In one day, people who have been told, well, you've got atrial fibrillation, you've got a heart problem, we're going to have to operate. That can sometimes be fixed in minutes. I got interviewed, I don't know if you come across by a Crow 777. He had, when he interviewed me, a trigger finger, and his sister had just paid a lot of money to have an operation to free up the trigger fingers. The trigger fingers just won't straighten, inconvenient. And so I'd sent him in advance of the interview some vitamin C and some magnesium. And he showed me the trigger finger at the beginning of the 2-hour show. So I told him, take some right now. Get a glass of water, take the magnesium and the vitamin C right now. 1 hour later, his finger had straightened.
Wow.
He cancelled the surgery.
So it's as quick as that then. These things can be as quick as that.
Yeah.
So you're not waiting for something to get into your system and work its way around and then get to the place it goes direct.
Super quick. So you can rub it in, go straight through the skin into the bloodstream. Bam, you've got it. Very, very, very quick. Or you can take a capsule. It's slower. Or you could inject it. It's really fast. So just to digress for a moment, I wonder how many people listening to this are using a skin cream, for instance. You know, their skin's dry, maybe from lack of iodine, so they're rubbing on creams. Now, bearing in mind that whatever you put on your body goes right into the bloodstream, maybe into the brain or whatever. You know, you think about that thick, goopy cream. If that's not natural, that night cream or hand cream, or whatever it might be, what's in it? And what happens when it goes into your bloodstream and enters your brain? How many people are poisoning themselves through their skin? You know, when you get in the shower or the bath or something, and you're getting hot, all the pores of your skin have opened, and you're rubbing in shampoo or conditioner or soap into your skin, into your brain. What's in it? Because it may say organic on your shampoo, but they can use that word because if there's a plant source, well, plants are organic, oil's organic, many things are organic. It doesn't mean the definition that you might think of. There are no police, you know, about organic shampoos. There are some great companies who are making organic shampoos, and they really are. But there are others who are just abusing the word. So everybody's got to start thinking, do I want to poison myself? Is it a choice? I interviewed a London, very expensive medical doctor, GP in London, and she was telling me the number of people she finds with hair dye poisoning, women obviously mainly, hair dye poisoning. There are so many ways that we can be poisoning ourselves accidentally, washing up the dishes with dishwasher liquid, or, you know, washing up liquid. I mean, we really need to realize that we're being poisoned at every level. Some years ago, I went into Lidl to look at the food with a camera, and I was looking for any food I could find, organic or otherwise, that wasn't poisoned. And they did throw me out before I'd gone through every aisle. I couldn't find anything that didn't have poison in one way or another. I mean, they'll say, oh, it's such a trace amount, it's safe, you know, but nevertheless, a trace amount of poison is still poison. So, you know, when we go to the shops, we have to take a very distinct choice that if we can afford it, if we can find it, we need to deliberately stop supporting the corrupt corporations who don't care whether they poison us or not. We've got to start cutting out the supermarkets. You know, I mean, I've got a terrible lisp, so you know that one called Deathco. You know, Deathco food. You know, maybe it's fabulous. Maybe you can trust all of it, but I would rather go to a biodynamic farmer or a small organic farmer, natural farmer, who is not choosing to use pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, larvicides, you name it. You know, I want my food without poison. Thank you very much.
And can you do this on a budget? Because many people are confined by the budget, you know, for the food, and really can't really afford to be looking at everything. And you know what it's like when there's mums shopping or dads shopping or mum and dad shopping. They've got kids there. The kids want certain things, the nice, shiny, but bright coloured things. You know, is there a way that you can do this on a budget?
There are so many ways. I mean, for a start, most baby foods that you buy ready-made contain sugar. So they're just, you know, young children, until they learn about sugar, don't know that they want it. And so early education is a bit important. I mean, some things that are organic are ludicrous. I mean, for instance, you can go to Aldi or wherever it is and probably buy a chicken for $2.99 or $3.99 or something like that, but it will have been fed stuff that you really wouldn't want to eat yourself, whereas the organic one might be 3 times the price. If you go to a farm where it's really natural, they haven't fed it genetically modified soya or soya at all, or whatever they're feeding animals these days, but it's been just running wild, eating the insects and wildflowers and, you know, whatever the chickens eat, it might be 5 times the price of the little type chicken. So it can be very difficult. However, with things like organic milk, organic bread, it may only be 20% more expensive or 30% more expensive rather than hundreds of percent more. So one's got to pick one's battles. But then again, you can do things yourself. I mean, one of the things that I think is incredibly important right now in the world, with people getting fed up about the thing spelt with a K, 19, people are going on marches. Millions of people are marching. And yeah, it makes them feel a bit better, but we know the government's never going to do anything. It's never going to work as such. But if 1 million people started planting food instead of marching, 1 million people, if they don't have their own garden, they ask their neighbors, do you mind if I plant some food in your garden? They could be planting an apple tree or a pear tree, or just plant food any way you can. Potatoes, you can just put potatoes on top of grass, impacted soil. Get some cardboard, free cardboard from a supermarket or something, cut some holes in where the potato can now go through the cardboard. Then you put a couple of feet of straw on top, right? Now, when you come back a few weeks later, the potatoes have now come up through the cardboard and the straw, and there's lots of greenery on top. And when it comes time to harvest, you just take away the straw and the cardboard, and there are all the potatoes more or less on the surface, because the ground was rock hard. So the potatoes did your digging for you for next year by sending their roots down. But because the ground was hard, most of the potatoes are right there on the top, and you just harvest them right away. There are so many ways to grow stuff. One of my other favorites with potatoes is you get some chicken wire and you make a column, like an oil barrel, and you put a layer of straw, a layer of soil, a layer of potatoes, a layer of the other way around, a layer of soil, a layer of potatoes, a layer of straw, layer of soil, layer of potatoes, layer of straw, and you layer it. And so you water it, and then after a short time, now the green leafy potato plants are coming out all over it. It's like a tube of green, and then you can start harvesting a few weeks later from the top. And at the top now there'll be little new potatoes, and as you work your way down, the potatoes get bigger and bigger as they get older and older. So you can have vertical gardening. You can do the same with strawberries. There are many things where you can, if all you've got is a balcony, you can use height. Then if you've got no balcony, no garden at all, no access to anybody else's garden, you can buy seeds for sprouting. Seeds to plant maybe cost £3 for 50, but seeds for sprouting, you can get organic seeds made for sprouting. You can buy thousands for £3, and you can sprout salad. You can sprout broccoli, or if you like bean sprouts, you can sprout mung beans. That's bean sprouts. You can sprout almost anything. Chickpeas. You come home with a kilo of chickpeas. Let's say you like hummus or falafel or something like that, and you want to make it. If you soak those dried chickpeas, they'll double in size by the end of the day. Now, let's say after soaking them for half a day or a day, you just put them in a glass jar. You've strained out the water, but they're sort of damp. So now they're probably growing in size much more. Now they're just beginning to sprout. You just rinse them a couple of times a day. After about 3 days, you've got maybe 3 or 4 times the weight of chickpeas that you'd actually bought. And instead of them being dormant, yes, if you planted them, they grow. Now they've gone from dormant to being vibrantly alive. You've probably increased the amount of vitamins in that by, 25 times or something. You've taken a food and brought it back to life. All that, the whole year of the last year's plant, the whole purpose was for this seed. And so you could be sprouting beetroot seeds, onion seeds, garlic chives. You could be sprouting anything that you would put in a salad. And you can mix the seeds together, and you could sprout loads of different salad leaves in a few days. And you put in like 1/8 of an inch of seeds, or an inch of seeds, you'll probably have a foot of seeds a week later or something. Everybody's seen sprouts, I think, in the stores, in the health food stores anyway. £1.50 for a little tub. what's the net cost of the seeds to grow that? Less than 5p. So incredibly economical way to have fresh food in the middle of winter. Seeds and lentils and so on, they don't need light. You don't need to do it even on a windowsill. They'll sprout in the dark. They sprout underground, don't they? But loads of ways to, eat healthily and organic. I mean, our ancestors, we ate locally, we ate seasonally. It was right there or it wasn't there, before mass transport. And so, I mean, I'm lucky I live deep in the country and I can go foraging for mushrooms and foraging for, all sorts of things. Right now, there are rose hips for my vitamin C. Their blackberries are over now, but there is food out there, all sorts of salad vegetables. I make quite a nice pesto with stinging nettles. There is food if you're lucky enough to know where it is and find it. But otherwise, go to markets. I think, some things are grown without too many chemicals. If you're growing it yourself, you want to learn about companion gardening. You plant onions next to carrots, and each one fends off the insects. But of course, remember that insects usually only eat unhealthy plants. Insects avoid usually healthy ones, because the healthy ones have enough strength to put out the chemical protectants to stop the insects getting in. I mean, many skins around fruits, for instance, are there as a slight poisonous layer to stop the insects getting in. So sometimes, let's say with potatoes, if you're roasting them, it may be better not to eat the skin. With tomatoes, for instance, people who have an issue with tomatoes, it's usually the skin that they have the issue with. So if they blanch the tomatoes and peel the skin off easily, then people who think they've got a problem with tomatoes might not have.
That's one of my bugbears, actually. I love tomatoes, but that sometimes I get them and the skin I really can't be doing with. It seems to not want to, it doesn't seem to want to separate and break up, like with the tomato. But what you're saying about growing food, I mean, do you need much room for this? And also, somebody's asked in the chat room, hello to everyone in the chat room. Sorry, I've not been asking you questions yet, but we will get to them. Keep putting them in capitals in the chat room. If I see them, I will write them down. I've already written down a load. So, but somebody's asked, which is the best? Are the supplements the best, or the food? And also, how much room do you need, really? I mean, you said you live in a big house with, a lot of countryside around you. So I would imagine it's pretty easy. You've got quite an area to grow some food. But
well, I rent a 2-bedroom cottage. I don't live in a big house. It's a really quite small house, really, and I've got a very small garden. I mean, how much space do you need? Well, it depends how good a gardener you are. It really depends how good you are. But it's not easy growing food in England. I had an organic farm for 10 years, so I've got quite a bit of experience of growing stuff. It's not easy. But if you ask your neighbors, well, what's growing for you? Because if it's growing next door, it may well grow for you. I mean, this year I've had great success with fruits, strawberries, raspberries. I found they do really well here. I planted some globe artichokes, and I couldn't get them to grow here, whereas it's round the corner, they're growing fine. So, where in the past I've had easy growing with stuff. So it depends, but one way or another, food is going to get short. That's their plan. They're planning to starve us out. So we need to do everything we can to be as self-sufficient as possible.
Absolutely. I'm sorry about saying you live in a massive house. It's because somebody in the chat room had put, when you said you live in the country, somebody in the chat room would put the line from the Blur song. He lives in a house, a very big house in the country. So that's the reason why I said big house. I meant just you live in a house in the country with a big area around you. Thanks, Cocky, for doing that. Yeah, as Dave Iron said, there's plenty of stuff out there if you forage. He says he's been twice this week. You'll have to let us know about that, Dave. Perhaps we'll get you on and talk about your foraging at some point. Right. Anyway, I'm going to ask you some of these questions. We've asked arthritis and blood pressure. Oh, arthritis, blood pressure, and dry mouth. Those are three symptoms, shall we say? And what would you suggest for them?
All right. Well, in reverse order: dry mouth, water.
Yeah.
And that may be it. So many people aren't drinking enough. Anybody who you see this with women quite a lot. They have these lines under their nose, above the upper lip, and so a lot of people who are very wrinkled, simply it's just a sign they're not drinking enough water. And I would think half of everybody may not be drinking enough. People who've got lower back pain, the first thing to think about is it dehydration? Eye problems, not thinking clearly. Could it be dehydration? We're mainly water.
Headaches.
Headaches, absolutely, a great example. Yeah, could it be water?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. I should drink far more water than I do. I quit drinking alcohol, and I was quite a heavy drinker, but I quit about June time. And yet I'm still dehydrated, if you understand what I mean. I used to remember waking up in the morning with a hangover most days because I'd been drinking so much the day before. And I'd wake up with a headache, which I knew was dehydration and stuff because of the drinking. But now I've stopped drinking. I'm not drinking really anything at all. I'm perhaps having a little bit of water in the morning. I know that I'm asking you for advice, but I know what the advice is just drink more water, but it can be quite difficult to get round.
It's a habit, actually. It really is a habit, and we get out of the habit, and a lot of people, they get confused. They get out of the habit of drinking water, and somehow their brain says, I'm hungry. But actually, if they drank water, then the brain wouldn't be saying they're hungry, because that lack, that missing part in the stomach, if you like, or in the system, they misinterpret as eat food when it should be drink water. So, I mean, if you want to keep your car clean, you got to wash it, right? You could wash it in coffee. You could wash it in fruit juice. You could wash it in water. And if you don't wash the car often enough, it's going to get clogged up and, dirty and so on. And if you think about your cells, your cells are mainly water. So to get those toxins flushed out, I mean, let's say, we go to Deathco, we buy dinner there, and there are some poisons. Now, we want to flush those poisons out. And by drinking enough water, we've got the mechanism, just a simple physical mechanism to flush stuff out. What were the other two questions? Was it heart?
Yeah, well, I was just going to make the point that even though I've stopped drinking, I still wake up and I feel like I've got a hangover, which I think is probably the dehydration. Yeah.
Well, it could well be. I mean, think about the brain. The brain's mainly water, right? So if it's like a sponge, imagine the sponge contracting, and that's your brain go, ouch,
The other two were blood pressure. We'll go with blood pressure next, because then I'll give you the...
All right. Well, blood pressure, same answer, right? Imagine you're dehydrated, so your blood is going to get thicker, isn't it? Less water, thicker blood. Now, if you've got a pumping blood around your body, if it's a thicker liquid, it's going to be more viscous. So there's going to be more resistance. So your blood pressure is likely to go up, isn't it? Because it's harder to pump it around. So let's say that because of dehydration, now somebody's kidneys aren't functioning as well as they should be, as well as they used to. Now, the doctors might say, you've got a kidney problem. But let's say the body is more intelligent than the doctor, and the body has already worked out in advance that you've got a kidney problem. Now, the kidneys obviously are filtering the blood, and let's say that by dehydration now, the very fine blood vessels in the kidneys aren't functioning properly because there just wasn't enough water to make it happen. It's not enough water to keep flushing the toxins round. Then the body might take the decision, I know what to do. Let's turn up the blood pressure, like turning the tap up more, so that now more fluids are going through the kidneys, so the kidneys can work as they should be. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
So there's always a reason why the body does something. If you've got high cholesterol or you've got high blood pressure or whatever it might be, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It doesn't mean that just because one of your cholesterol levels has got a large number to it, that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. It's just that your body is responding to something and using cholesterol. Let me give you a cholesterol example. I'll just get off the subject slightly for a minute. Your brain, right? It's mainly water. What's the rest of it? The rest of it's mainly fat, right? The wobbly bit of your brain. And it's mainly cholesterol. So the doctor looks at somebody's arteries and says, ooh, high blood pressure, we're going to test your cholesterol levels. And now they say there's good cholesterol and bad. This is crazy. That's like saying venous blood is bad and arterial blood is good, or the other way around. No, one's just going in and one's coming out. So if they say you've got high cholesterol, what if that cholesterol is doing you a favor? What if the arteries have been damaged by dehydration or lack of vitamin C or lack of magnesium or whatever it might be, and the body's worried that those arteries might crack and burst and that might kill you? So what if it's not about the food that you eat that is creating that cholesterol? Your liver's perfectly capable of making cholesterol itself from other things. So it turns out that if an artery is cracking, that the liver may make cholesterol as an internal bandage to stop the artery splitting. But the doctor just says, your cholesterol's high, cholesterol is the problem. No. Cholesterol is an answer to a different problem. So we really have to look at everything that we think we know health-wise and question the lot, because the press are bought and paid for. The doctors essentially are bought and paid for, and they pretend to know about nutrition. You see a medical nutritionist, how much do they know about nutrition? Well, in my opinion, very little.
Yeah. And the blood thing is quite fucking fireworks, arseholes. It's not even, what is it, second? No, it's just going to set a dog off. Dear me. With the blood, you see, I've got a condition which used to be called sticky blood syndrome. It's antiphospholipid syndrome. So my blood's quite thick anyway. So I'm on a blood thinner.
Oh dear. That's a very, very dangerous situation. Blood thinners. Look, what's the best blood thinner in the world? You know the answer to this one. It's called water.
I don't know.
Water is the best blood thinner in the world.
Right. Okay.
Right. Water. Right. When you look at your blood thinner label, the warning thing, it'll tell you foods not to eat. Why does it tell you not to eat those foods? Because they thin your blood without having to take a drug. So
right.
you don't have blood too thin, otherwise you could bleed to death. But with some of the modern blood thinners, there is no antidote. If you bleed, they can't stop the bleeding. You know, with warfarin, the rat poison they used to give as a blood thinner.
That's what I'm on.
Oh, well, then that's all right, because there is an antidote. If you
I've got vitamin K in house.
sure. So what if you ate vitamin K rich foods and drank more water? Why wouldn't you be fine? You're not low on a drug, right? They've conned you. They have conned you into allowing them to drug you. Why do doctors spend 5 years learning medicine? They get a license, just like 007 gets a license to kill. Doctors, after 5 years, are given a license to give poisons legally. And the idea is that in the right dose, it'll kill the cancer with a K or whatever it might be before it kills you. But they're licensed poisoners. The whole, if you look up the word pharmacy or pharmacopoeia or whatever, in Greek, it translates, I believe, to poison.
Yeah. Yeah, it is something that does worry me. I've been on for nearly 10, coming on 10 years, it'll be 10 years next year, which is a long time to be on something. And
well, it's
I'm
a long
still,
time to be on something that kills rats. I mean, when the doctors quote the studies, they say we did a study on rats, and it cured the rat's cancer or something. So on the one hand, they're willing to compare rats with humans, and on the other hand, give humans rat poison. Makes sense to me.
yeah. It's just that I did try a time off it. Well, I went to Spain and forgot them, and for a week, and had a stroke on plane on the way back. So obviously, I thought a week I'd be okay.
Well, look. Let's look at what a stroke can be, right? So let's imagine you've got thick blood, right? And now the blood is going. You get to junctions all the time where the arteries and veins split. Smaller and smaller junctions. So if you've got viscous blood, what they now say happens is that you get to a junction and the blood rips off the little bit of junction, right? And that causes a stroke. Again, dehydration. Water's got a lot to answer for. You can drown in this stuff. Did you know that?
Yeah, I've heard that, but I don't know. Arthritis, that was the next one.
Yeah.
Arthritis was the one.
Right. So it's so easy. Arthritis is a buildup of calcium on the joints primarily, leading to inflammation and pain and so on. Magnesium dissolves calcium, and that really is critical. I mean, the critical things are so simple. Without vitamin C, you're likely to have a buildup of cholesterol. Without vitamin B3, which is niacin, you can have a buildup of cholesterol. Medical doctor, Dr. Abraham Hoffer, did a clinical trial with high cholesterol using what they call orthomolecular medicine, which is a fancy name for vitamins and minerals and stuff. And he proved like 40 years ago or more that you can reverse cholesterol by repairing arteries using vitamin C and vitamin B3. And he used one or two other things as well. But it's it used to be online on Google. I expect they've removed it now. But if you put in Abraham Hoffer, Hoffer, and cholesterol study, you'll go, wow, why haven't I heard this before? In England, they've got 11 million people on statins. Statins stop men getting erections, damage the kidneys and the liver and the brain. And the idea that 11 million people are low on a drug called statins is the most insane thing, because doctors are basing this assumption on the fact that people have got high cholesterol. Why have they got high cholesterol? Because they're low on vitamin C and maybe vitamin D in winter and magnesium. It's just laughable. This stuff needs to be taught in schools. By the time somebody gets to, 14, 15, 16, they can grasp how magnesium works. It's really easy to understand. People can grasp that fresh food is full of vitamins, but the moment you pick a vegetable or a fruit or something, it's beginning its process of dying. It's sort of dead and now deteriorating. So minerals last forever. You can set fire to minerals. You can burn a red pepper to dust, and the minerals are still fine, but the vitamins are gone. Time, heat, destroys vitamins. So because food isn't fresh anymore, everybody's low on vitamins. Of course they're having arterial issues because they're not getting enough vitamin C. It's like everybody's got scurvy in a mild way. Everybody's deficient in virtually everything these days. So it's unfortunate that people have to supplement. But I've seen people who were falling apart, and short time later, a few supplements. Yeah, it's cost them a couple of £100 or something, but that's about what it costs to park a car in the hospital car park these days.
Yeah, once you get a ticket and that's if you pay it. I mean, we're not a show that tells you not to pay anything or do anything or whatever. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, I would certainly pay £200 to not have gone through what I have to go through, even this year. I've spent some time in hospital, and I'm really starting to realise that eating, because I didn't eat at all when I was drinking. I didn't eat. It's a very good way of losing weight. I didn't eat very much at all, and when I did try to eat, I couldn't get it down. So yeah, since I've even just reintroducing food to me has made such a difference, because I've stopped drinking, and eventually I've got back onto food. So even the rubbish, like you said, it's all been the nutrients have been farmed out of the soil, or they've been dragged out or whatever. So yeah, it is a. I'm starting to realise. I always thought I could get away with it. I thought I could get away with it. I kept saying to myself, I drink too much, and look at I'm old and I still look okay. And when you see alcoholics, they usually all all the teeth are missing. All right, I ain't got all my teeth, but I've still got a decent row, all different colours as well. Rainbow teeth, a bit like can't say rainbow anymore, can you? Can't say rainbow anymore. Since that was stolen. But yeah, I am seeing that what you're eating and what you put inside your body. I've got some CBD oil that I've been using, but it's not as good as the stuff that I used to get. It's all about weighing things up, in it, trying different things. If it makes you feel better, then you're going to do it, aren't you? You're going to continue.
It's about getting the good stuff. 95% of the health supplement industry, I'd say, has been bought out by big pharma or big food, or the bad guys, you might say. So the problem is, you go into a health food store, what do you buy? How do you know what's good or bad? I mean, some of the big companies are owned by arms dealers. It's pretty crazy out there. So putting a bit of time and effort to make sure that what you're getting is actually going to work. There's no point in wasting money and time on stuff that isn't going to work. By the way, for anybody who's an alcoholic, I've seen loads of people come off alcohol really easily in a day or two, using the right type of amino acids and the right type of selenium. Just last week, I've got this club called Secret Health Club, secrethealthclub.com, and we had a meeting of sort of like the VIP members. It's called Ask Clive Anything. I do a few hours every month. And a couple of people there were explaining that with the special selenium that I have, that one woman not only gave up red wine in 24 hours, and she was drinking a lot, also after a few months on the selenium, her hair color came back, which is extraordinary. Somebody else on the call explained that in one day their ADHD had stopped, and they must have been 20 years old or something. ADHD, boom, gone. So one's got to realize that mineral deficiencies can be drastic in what happens to somebody. Down syndrome, selenium deficiency, maybe a copper deficiency as well, cleft palate, all the birth defects are mineral deficiencies, right? And vets know how to fix it in animals. Almost all the, you can't give sheep expensive drugs, right? You got to fix them. So they have sheep pellets and pig pellets and so on, which are all the vitamins and minerals. And then the pigs don't get nasty diseases. And these days we're the same. We need to take pig pellets or cow pellets or the equivalent, just some simple minerals, not expensive. I'll tell you, a really good way to get cheap minerals for like 10 quid is to go online and buy a kilo of Celtic salt. It's sea salt. They call it Celtic salt. It's unrefined salt, so it's grey in colour, comes from the North Atlantic coast, and it tastes fantastic. Tastes 10 times better than pink salt, 100 times better than table salt, and it's much better than regular sea salt, because regular sea salt that's bleached and white and fluffy like Malden, they've removed the magnesium, which makes it damp. And so most people think, oh, I'm eating sea salt, it's fine. Well, try Celtic salt, because it's got a lot more minerals in and it's in perfect balance. The minerals, the salt hasn't been bleached. I like a material called fulvic minerals, Fulvic, fulvic minerals, and a little tiny bottle like this size lasts months and months and months. Just put a few drops in water, and it provides many of the trace elements that are missing from food. And basically, this is an extract of soil. Right? There are a few places in the world where the soil is packed with minerals, some geological accident maybe. My favorite example of this, maybe you've seen it, or some people may have seen it. Have you seen that BBC documentary where a mother goat and a baby goat climb a dam, hundreds and hundreds of feet, almost vertical? They can lick water that's dripping through the dam. Have you seen that at all?
Yes, I have, yeah.
So a fantastic video, you can find it on Google. And so what are they doing? They're risking their lives to lick some minerals coming out of a rock several hundred feet high in the dam. And animals will cross deserts to lick rocks that are rich in minerals. Horses who are starving will eat the fence posts. They'll eat their stable if they need the minerals that badly. Children, people, sometimes you see them biting their fingernails. That's a subconscious desire to try and get all the minerals they can from reusing the minerals in their fingernails. We're all so low on this basic materials, and here's a good example. Let's say we went down to the zoo and we realized that almost all the animals are ill. Right? That's odd. Why is that? Well, surely the first question we'd ask the zookeeper is, what are you feeding these animals? They all look really ill. And we need to start asking ourselves, what are we feeding ourselves? Because most people are really ill.
Yeah. Yeah, I know more people that are ill than I know that are healthy. Listen, Cocky is in the chat room, and he put a question earlier on, which I've written down and I've got ready to ask, but he's getting really, really... yes, well, he's not willing to wait too long. Anyway, he said somebody detox. Somebody he knows. I think he was talking about somebody else. I think it might have been his brother, but they detox for 10 days on coffee and water. It doesn't give any sort of indication of how much coffee and water. But what's your thoughts on that one?
Well, detoxing for 10 days, maybe it's a good idea to just detox permanently. Too fast a detox can be damaging to some people. It depends. Really strong people, they're well-built, muscular and so on, healthy, then they can go on a detox and they'll probably be a lot better for it. They'll probably feel great. I've done a fast for a couple of weeks and, I was strong to do it. But if somebody wasn't well, they're really fragile, maybe a fast wouldn't be such a good idea. With the coffee, it may be coffee enemas. Quite a few people use coffee enemas. I mean, at one end of the scale, my friend Dave Murphy, he went on a urine fast, recycling his own urine as the only thing he drank or ate for 28 days. And every minor problem that he'd had health-wise was fixed. There are other people who I've suggested them, I think you should go raw vegan as a detox. Raw vegan for a month. Personally, I can't do raw vegan for a month. I couldn't handle it. I really can't do that. But for some people, suddenly it's the answer. Their health has been transformed by doing that. I know one person, they tried raw vegan, that didn't fix their problem. They had IBS. They couldn't go out for a walk for more than an hour without being near a bathroom. And they went raw carnivore for a month at raw steak, raw ground up steak. And within one meal, they didn't have IBS anymore. What was Cocky's question again? I can't remember.
He was talking about what you thought of the detox with coffee and water.
Yeah. Well, for some people, water fasts are a fantastic thing. And for some people love coffee enemas. It's not something that I particularly choose. But there are so many different ways to do everything. I mean, maybe 15 years ago or something, I had a 28-year-old woman come to see me who wanted to do a detox. And she was particularly concerned to do a detox of the bowel. And it was the very first time I'd ever recommended to anybody to try a detox with water, bentonite clay, and psyllium husks. She rings me up the next morning and she says, never guess what came out. She said, a little piece of yellow Lego came out this morning, she said. She reckoned it must have been stuck there for 25 years. She didn't.
Yellow Lego? Oh, God, I hope it were one of them long pieces and not one of them big square ones.
Yeah, no, it was a little small piece, apparently. But, so we're all toxically poisoned. I mean, the way I like to detox, if I was going to do it, was not to avoid the toxins in the first place, but vitamin C is a fantastic detoxification material. Fulvic minerals that I mentioned, fantastic for detoxing. Iodine, if you've got some sort of pathogen in you, not much can resist iodine. It wipes things out. If you had toxic metal poisoning, let's say for years you'd had some metal fillings, or you're eating a lot of tuna fish, or you're near a coal-fired power station, maybe you're worried that you've got mercury poisoning, then if you were to use sulfur, lots of garlic, lots of ginger, eggs, cruciferous vegetables, lots of sulfur-rich foods, but if you supplemented with sulfur, it can be dramatic. So let's say when you were younger, you had a silver metal filling with mercury and you brushed your teeth once. Let's say you brushed off one atom of mercury, one molecule of mercury, say. Now, that tiny little minute piece of mercury will kill the first human cell it meets, and probably kill some friendly bacteria as well. And it won't be weakened by that. For a year, that piece of mercury might have been going around your body, killing you, basically. But if you get enough sulfur to mix with the mercury, you can make mercury sulfate. The mercury sulfate is water soluble. So if you're drinking enough water, you can flush your body out. So, sulfur mixed with metals creates water soluble sulfates. So there are ways to detox. So many ways to do it. But one of the before doing any detox, you want to make sure that you're eliminating properly. Are the bowels working properly? Anybody who wants to flush toxic metals out of their cells, they want to be absolutely sure that they're drinking enough water to pee it out or to shit the toxins out. People who are constipated should not do a detox, not until they've fixed their constipation.
John Smith in the chat room. Good evening, John. John Smith, made up name, I think. Nobody's called that, are they? He says, but Jason, ask Clive about GNM, German New Medicine, aka Sacred Medicine. I've never heard of that. Are you familiar with that?
Well, I am. Somebody I know went to university with the doctor who termed the phrase German New Medicine. And his story was that he's an oncologist, and at that point he had a, I don't know, 10, 15-year reputation or something as a famous German oncologist. And he gets the news that his son has been shot by the Crown Prince of Italy on a yacht. Anyway, they get the son into hospital, and the doctor and all his mates do everything they can to save his son's life, but after several months, they fail and the son dies. A few weeks later, 12 weeks later, I think it was, the oncologist is diagnosed with testicular cancer. And he has this light bulb go off in his mind. Could my son, which came from my testicles, his tragic death have something to do with me getting testicular cancer? So he writes to all of his clients, his cancer clients are still alive. Says, can you tell me, did you have some sort of traumatic event or events prior to the cancer? And he started mapping it. And he realized that left breast cancer was different to right breast cancer, that and women who were left-handed had it on the opposite breast of women who were right-handed. Anyway, after a long time, he proudly announced to the German Cancer Society and the German Medical Association his incredible findings that emotions were triggering cancers, and then how to unwind that. So what do? To celebrate, they threw him in jail. And for years he was in hiding because they kept on locking him up. And yeah, if you cure with a K, cancer with a K, yeah, they don't like that. They're not very fond of it.
They're not, are they? I mean, why else would they make it illegal? It don't make any sense. I mean,
well, it makes perfect sense when you follow the money. You know, enough vitamin C. Well, the first time I saw terminal cancer reversed was at the advice of Linus Pauling. He said 35 grams of vitamin C a day in divided doses. This guy, given weeks left to live, lived for another 20 years, and when he did die, it wasn't from cancer. So, vitamin C, cost of vitamin C, not very much. Cost of chemotherapy, 20,000 quid per round. Some people have 15,000 rounds, £750,000 on drugs. And for the private doctors in some countries, they get a kickback. They get a percentage. You know, they know it's not going to work. When a doctor says, you've got 3 months to live, how do they know? Because anybody who's on that chemotherapy drug never lives longer than 3 months. That's how they bloody know.
Somebody, when we're on to the subject of with a K, that star sign with a K, somebody's asked about GC math.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not really up to. I've heard of it, but as you can understand, I have to read a lot of stuff, and sometimes some stuff don't go in. So, what are your thoughts or experiences?
Okay, so I interviewed David Noakes, who's now in prison, many years ago, and I had the most viewed video about GC Math. He was very brave. He gave a talk that I arranged, and he was like the guest speaker, and he said, "Look, we're reversing stage 4 cancer and reversing autism." And I filmed his talk, and I said, "Look, if you realize if we put this out, you're going to end up in prison." And he said, "Well, I've already said it anyway. It won't be new. I've said it to others." And he used those words. I hate these words. He said, "Bring it on." Don't want to say that. They did. They brought it on all right. You know, he made the mistake of curing people and shouting about it. You know, he is one of the bravest people around. Super brave, amazing guy, David Noakes. They locked up his partner as well. She's now got out. Luckily, she didn't die inside. So they were competition. They were. David was accused of making a drug without a license, and he stepped on some toes, made everybody liked them. I mean, nobody was harmed by the product. Some people spent money and it didn't work for them, so they may be financially harmed, but it was a magnificent achievement and many people were helped by it. And then they started murdering people. The main doctor being supplied with it was Dr. Jeffrey Bradstreet. He and Kerry Rivera were working together, and they were curing children, reversing autism. And they celebrated, Dr. Bradstreet celebrated the night before, and with Marco Ruggiero, who basically was the creator of this form of GC-MAF that I'm talking about. And the next day they were going to meet as a celebratory lunch. Dr. Bradstreet went out, shot himself in the chest with a shotgun, and then climbed up a bridge and threw himself off, as you do when you're celebrating. And then maybe 100 doctors were killed over GC-MAF, basically. The most trouble I've been in this career was when I started talking about GC-MAF and autism. I had death threats, bomb threats, my talks cancelled, people with placards. It's so you can't get GC-MAF really anymore. But Kerry Rivera, who I mentioned, and she's been arrested and all sorts of problems there. She wrote the book Reversing the Symptoms Known as Autism, and you can watch her work on Autism 1 in video form. She has a product called Breakthrough Vitamin D on her website, ketokerry.com. All my videos with her were taken down in seconds. Basically, it would appear that, I did 2 videos. One was called GC-MAF, but 350 times less expensive. All right, they took that one down. This is Keto Kerry's Breakthrough Vitamin D product. It's with chondroitin. And anybody who's heard about GC-MAF, for not too much money, you could try. No guarantees it's going to work, but I think Kerry's reversed more autism than anybody else I know.
Yeah, well, we started to get a bit of trouble as soon as we started talking about that. It is big business, and it's where big business comes in. Then you start to get things like people shooting themselves in the chest and then chucking themselves off a bridge. That's always going to happen with these people around that are doing this sort of stuff. Good evening to Webby, who's just joined us in the chat room. Good. I hope you're doing okay, mate. Webby's the guy you were talking to last week. I don't know if you remember, but he sort of left before you'd finished, and then left you to finish off. But he came back not long afterwards. Not long after you'd gone. Evening, Webby. If anybody's not seen that, go to the Webster Report, and you can watch the interview between Webby and Clive here, who's with us on Raconteurs News tonight. From Spanish Chicken, we've got a couple. He wants your opinion on a couple of things. Firstly, fluoride, and secondly, distilled water. Okay,
so fluoride. Anybody who is getting translucent teeth, you see some who have nice white teeth. Now, others are going sort of yellowy, as if you can almost see through them. That's fluoridosis. That can be fluoride poisoning. So fluoride is a neurotoxin. You do not want it in your water. You've got to filter it out if it's in there. You don't want to eat or drink products that were made in a fluoridated area. Guinness is fluoridated. Many of the Spanish beers are fluoridated. Things made in Birmingham are generally fluoridated. So we need to avoid fluoride at all costs. The correlation between better teeth and fluoride is spurious at best, and the fluoride they're putting in is not the fluoride from that report. It's a byproduct from the aluminium business. And if the aluminium business had to dump it, as it would be toxic waste. But if they filter it through human bodies, it's no longer toxic waste because we've detoxified it using our bodies. Sounds great, doesn't
it? Yeah. Distilled water.
Okay, so there are lots of people who drink distilled water. and believe that that is a sensible way to detoxify. Now, rainwater would be fairly close to distilled water. Which would one prefer, rainwater or spring water, for example? So I like the idea of spring water, where when water is ripe, ready for harvesting, it comes by itself up to the surface, defying gravity. And I would say that water is ready. And our ancestors used to revere spring water. You know, people would travel to the springs, just like this travel to the spas. You know, it was only 120 years ago, 100 years ago, that there was hydrotherapy outfits all over the place, just like there were about 20 homeopathic hospitals in England or in Britain, say. There were hydros all over the place where you'd go to take the waters one way or another. I can just see a note coming up.
That's ready from last week.
Oh, right. Oh, brilliant. And anybody who hasn't discovered the Webster Report needs to read up about his advice about the law. Fantastic, clear advice about the law. Everybody at this point needs to wake up real fast about our rights, because we are so powerful in every way. And with encroaching tyranny, we've got to wake up right now and stop wasting our time and start doing things that matter, because what's coming is this is what's coming. This is a Bank of Zimbabwe $10 billion note, and in months, one Zimbabwe dollar was replaced in value by 10 billion. It went up to 100 trillion before they finally stopped. And we've got to be aware that inflation is here, but it hasn't really started yet. People unfortunately need to, if you have spare money, to stock up on food and stuff they need. Stuff you need. Just, if you don't use it, great. You got lots of food. But we've got to wake up that, if you believe that crypto is the answer, then get a little bit of that. But to get out of the banks at some point soon and get into stuff that would be useful in any friendly neighborhood apocalypse that might turn up.
That might come your way in the very, very near future. If it's not the sun's going to crash into the earth, I think that's what they're up in Glasgow now talking about it. ResiTuber asked about a positive nitrogen balance. I don't know whether you'd understand what he means.
I don't really know.
No. Okay, well, we'll move on then. Somebody else had a question up here that it may be for nitrogen balance. No. I'm getting all mixed up and everything. Good advice. Good advice. Good on the fluoride. I know what you're talking about when you talk about that yellow, because I've got one right at the very front, and I've got a filling that fell out from the back of one of my front teeth, which I thought might make me chip it, or it might break or anything like. But it's not. It's fine. It's not the yellow one. It's the other one. So I don't know what I've been feeding that on, but one of them's gone. They say it's the enamel, don't they?
Well, without having a good look, I can't really give a professional dental opinion, especially not being a dentist. But I mean, you see the fluorosis in the teeth all the time, and unfortunately, if you have had a filling once, it's probably going to fall out at some point. And the real danger, teeth-wise, I'd say, is root canal fillings. Anybody who's got a root canal needs to look at the work of Hal Huggins, a dentist called Hal Huggins, and you might want to decide that you may be better off without the root canal filling. Might be better to take it out. so many people have got ill from the root canal filling, what can happen is that you can get an infection, but because they cut the nerve, people don't know they've got an infection, and it can affect the brain, or it can create things that begin with K. Root canal is very dangerous. I think dentists are the most dangerous surgeons on the planet. People think, oh, it's just dental surgery. Every surgery has risks, and
we've got a regular listener who's a dentist, and he's really given up all the. I think he's given up altogether now. He's selling his part in a practice. So where I understand he's told me about what goes on in normal dental stuff, and I've got 2 root canals, but I've got rid of them now. I ended up pulling them out. They were, like you say, I had no idea there were infection in them. They weren't painful, but they were an infection in there, so they came out, and they are terrible. Someone says, get a train between Jason's teeth, or yeah, it's the sexiest people that have a gap in the teeth at the front. You know that, don't you? That's a well-known fact, Dinny. Thank you very much. Thomas Urban, Cool Picks, earlier on, put a question in. He said, what would you recommend for seizures?
Okay, well, seizures, absolutely. Make sure you're hydrated, and magnesium as the first thing to try. As I explained, I think at the beginning, anything, a seizure is, it's squeezing. So the chances are that magnesium and, they may need other things, but a great research tool, by the way, there are 2 great research tools on the web. One is called greenmedinfo.com, and the other is earthclinic.com.
Earth what, sorry?
Earthclinic.com.
Clinic. Oh, I thought you said collegiate or something.
Yeah. Earthclinic.com. Yeah. If you want to try and figure out yourself, and you want to use old-fashioned remedies, you want to, our ancestors would have used things like apple cider vinegar or garlic, or, if you want to find out about old-fashioned remedies, earthclinic.com is fantastic.
Right. Okay. So earthclinic.com. Yeah.
.com. Another way to find out good information is I've got a website called secrethealthclub.com, and when they started harassing me in about 2014 and taking my videos down and trying to censor me, I started saving all the information that I really liked in the form of articles or videos, and I started this club where somebody's got, from A to Z, any problem you like. Hopefully they'll be able to look at the index and pick heart problems or whatever it is and get a fairly narrow collection of information that is actually right. You can put heart problems onto Google and a million things crop up. Well, now only 500,000 because they've censored all the good stuff, but there's so much. Like going to a health food store, there's so much, it's hard to know what to choose. So the idea of the Secret Health Club was that you can put in the problem that you've got, the family got, and get straight to the answer, uncensored. Because I can't say, here I'm just talking pretty freely, but if I want to put something on YouTube, well, it's like you can't these days, otherwise they'll just chuck you off.
Yeah, fortunately, that's not happened to me. Which is, with some of the subjects that we cover, has surprised me. But perhaps we're just not big enough to, and long may it continue. I don't want to be big enough to get people. Then we can keep talking, and people that understand will come back. Sean Amos put in the chat room here. It's true. I found out when my son had open heart surgery, PCR tests are among the listed risk factors for blood infections too, which is interesting. in this day and age. Clive, I wanted to ask you about something that we've had on our show, right, really from the start. We've not had him on recently, but we've had him on a few times. But what are your thoughts on inclined bed therapy?
Yeah, Andrew Fletcher.
Yeah.
I love inclining my bed. If I had the choice, I'd always stick the end of my bed up with a few books or something, 5 or 6 inches, so that my bed's on a slant, so my head is that bit higher than my feet. And I really like sleeping in that position. And there are loads of health benefits that people have reported back to me.
Yeah, I mean, my bed's inclined, and I've got my problems. I've got all sorts of. I've only got one leg. I've got heart problems and stuff. But inclining my bed, I think, after I had a heart attack in 2015, in December of 2015, and I inclined my bed in the April of the following year. So in fact, we started the show in January of the following year. So it was only like a month from having the heart attack to being on air. But yeah, I inclined my bed about April the following year. And up until then, I really was like a walking corpse. I was a bag of bones. I was skin all grey. And I inclined my bed, and in a few days, I felt incredible. Oh, there we go.
Well, that's impressive. I'll call you back. Unplug it. Forgot. Okay.
No, but it's probably somebody saying to you, "Oh, you're on telly." On YouTube, yeah. So yeah, I think everybody should have a look at the inclined bed therapy. Not only is it just it don't cost you anything, there's nothing to sell. It's just the concept itself, I think, which is ingenious, and the way to do it. Chris Partridge is in the chat room, and he's put, what's good for nerve damage?
Well, it depends. All sorts of different forms of nerve damage. Personally, I use frequency devices for nerve damage. I've got various different devices. My favorite is Tesla technology, and I use. I'll show you very briefly. People don't realize that Tesla invented devices. This is one of them. So
he's tasering himself.
You can charge yourself up with energy, and it's like if you walk on the ground barefoot, you're grounding yourself, and you're actually getting electrons coming into your body from the ground. If you do exercise, you're creating electrons. If you take antioxidants like vitamin C, you're creating electrons. And if somebody's got nerve damage, you might want to use something like this electric brush, and you brush over the nerve damage. And I had somebody, I've had several people who literally have got their feeling back. And it may have been 10 years since they last were able to feel their skin, after an operation or whatever. I'm not going to say this technology works every time, but there are ways to get nerve damage back. I mean, one's got to consider, could it be that actually the nerve damage is a result of an accident, and that actually what you really need is to go and visit a really good chiropractor, and maybe that's the issue. There are a lot of answers that might be applicable to that question, but the main thing is not to think anything is impossible or incurable or irreversible, because when the doctors don't know how to fix you, they say, "Oh, it's irreversible." It doesn't mean they're right.
Yeah, indeed. And how you said earlier on that you're type 1 diabetic. Now my son, my stepson, he's type 1 diabetic. He was diagnosed at 10, I think, 9 or 10. How are you getting on with that? Are you able to offset that and perhaps lower the amount of insulin that you need?
It has a lot to do with how well behaved one is, how self-restrained one might be, and I think my diabetic control is sort of moderate. I went to the hospital to get a proper checkup fairly recently, and they said they thought my diabetic control was perfect, but that's probably because I'm eating very well in comparison to most people. I'm probably eating better or more sensibly than 98% of the population, maybe, which maybe is why they think my control is good. But type 2 diabetes, almost everybody can reverse that in a month. Anybody's got type 2 diabetes. That's relatively easy to fix. Watch the video. What's it called? It is called Raw for 30 days. Raw for 30 days. And you can see how some people stop being type 2 diabetic. You don't have to go raw, by the way, to achieve it, but one's got to change one's diet. And essentially for type 2 diabetics, usually give their pancreas a rest. So come off all the processed foods and anything sweet, come off the fruit, really go, ideally, raw ketogenic would be good. But not, it's always that there's the exception to every rule. There's some people who will do well and other people who won't. But solutions to almost everything.
Yeah, well, as a father or stepfather to my stepson, who's, I suppose you will control yours a little bit better. Your diet's probably a little bit better than somebody who works at McDonald's.
This is asking for trouble.
Yeah, it is. Just, but I think he is. I think he's sort of had a bit of a bollocking at one of his clinics because his long term, it's just completely up and down and off charts. So anyway, well, we can stop talking about that. But yeah, I would imagine it would not be comparable, really. Someone asked a question. Paula's asked a question here. Health-wise, what does Clive recommend for lymphatic system not working?
Okay, exercise. I mean, we've our arteries and heart move the blood around, but only movement moves the lymph system. So the lymph system is like the sewage system of the body. Gets rid of the toxins. You're sweating it out through your armpits. You've got lymph glands in various places. So movement, physical, rubbing the lymph glands. Again, if somebody has a serious lymph blockage, I would again use a frequency device to unblock it. I've seen people who had like a sort of ping pong ball size thing under their armpit, seen it shrink in half in 5 minutes. So just in case anybody's wondering, I don't do consultations anymore. I used to, but I'm not taking on any new clients. But I do provide some practitioners with the information they need, or even the equipment they need to use frequency devices successfully.
Okay, I think I know the answer to this one, but Donna's a regular, so I'm going to ask a question. She wants to know what is good for cramp.
Magnesium. The first thing to do is to try magnesium.
Right.
Really good quality one, and don't be afraid to try a lot. Essentially, vitamin C and magnesium, if you take too much at once, you get diarrhea. So split it up into small doses. If you take too much in one day, you might also get diarrhea. Well, now you know what your tolerance level is. But most people with magnesium, they'll find the cramps stop, and they actually don't end up in the bathroom. A lot of people have usually positive results that they've suddenly become more regular.
Spanish Chicken's put in the chat room as well. One last question, he says. I believe deodorants are bad. Do you believe that? I think if we make that into a question, I think that's, do you think that deodorants are bad? And if so, what sort of deodorants would you recommend?
Well, look, I mean, the word means to stop odor. So soap and water, just water is a deodorant. But if you're talking about some nasty smelling chemical thing in a plastic roll-on sort of bottle thing, again, just look at the ingredients. If you wouldn't eat them or feed them to a baby, you don't want to rub them in where your lymph system is. It's one, we've got to wake up to the fact that we don't want to poison ourselves in any way, shape, or form. So I'd be very careful about ignorance if there's some chemical thing. I mean, lymph, for instance, right? How does our lymph system works? Well, we sweat out toxins, don't we? We pee out toxins, we sweat it out, shit it out, it comes out. So if you're putting something to stop you sweating, for example, right, you're keeping the poisons in with the poisonous chemical itself,
Right.
If somebody's got sweaty armpits or smelly feet, smelly armpits, smelly feet, then they've got to look at what they're eating. If somebody's constipated, they may have really smelly farts. If there's a smell involved somewhere, well, that's sort of poisons trying to come out, one would think. Maybe through lack of water, that kind of stuff,
Yeah. My farts have been really smelly recently. I don't know why.
Well, it could be that the food is fermenting in the bowels. And, imagine you didn't empty the bin in the kitchen for a while. It's going to start smelling really bad. So if somebody's not having regular bowel movements, or they're missing the probiotics, the friendly bacteria in the gut, anybody who's ever taken a drug from the doctor, it's reasonably likely that they're going to have their gut bacteria really decimated. And if you haven't got the right gut bacteria, you can't digest the food properly. And if you can't digest the food properly, your cells can't absorb the minerals and the nutrients properly. So constipation is a super big issue. Now, I mentioned that I'm type 1 diabetic. I'm sitting here realizing my brain function is deteriorating because my blood sugar is running low. So I'm going to be very unprofessional and pause for about 1 minute while I just eat a spoonful of honey, which will bring my blood sugar up very fast. So I'll be back.
That's no problem. That's no problem, Clive. We'll be here when you get back. We've only got 10 minutes left anyway, 10 or 12 minutes left before we say au revoir. Don't talk to me about a French accent. I can't talk about it. It'll have to be another night. It'll have to be Friday night. That'll give something to tune in for on Friday night. Me getting accused of being racist for using a French accent. I'll tell you about it. ResiTubers, Chris Partridge, Alan McVicker, Spanish Chicken. If you're watching this later on and you're looking through the chat logs, if you're watching this later on, go back to the beginning and have the live chat on, and you'll be able to see everybody talking on any of the shows. If you're watching any of the shows, and you can watch the live chat as it went on, and the live chat is sometimes more entertaining than the show itself, but not this one. This one's been a good one, Clive. What about if we talk about? Let's talk about. We've got 10 minutes left. I want you to plug your websites and I'll do all that sort of stuff at the end. Just so that we can direct some traffic towards you. But what about the current situation we're in? The with the K-19 the mandatory vaccinations with a pH. Well, I don't know how that works, but I've said it now, so I can't take it back. What are your thoughts on the whole situation? Because it's not just a medical situation, is it, or a health situation? It's sort of it's a whole world situation.
Well, it's World War III. Most people are getting an inkling now that war is being waged against humanity, that they're trying to destroy consciousness by inserting genes into human beings to change their humanity. We have to not comply. We have to learn the law as to how to use their own tricks against us. The world has been mind controlled. Most of the population have been hypnotized, mind controlled, to believe a whole bunch of lies. And I think it's very interesting to look at history to see that it's happened before. This isn't the first time that the authorities have demanded masks and needles and that sort of stuff. And people need to decide what they want from the future. We're at a wonderful point in history in one sense. Yes, tyranny and starvation are on one side, but on the other side, I think the figure's now something like 45% of people have decided to change their jobs, that they've realized that they like working from home, they like having their own time schedule. But the problem is that with so many people leaving their jobs, there are millions of job vacancies, and the issue is that if enough people aren't working, there are going to be shortages of everything, and it's conceivable that the world economy is going to fall apart. And we need to decide what world we want. As people are waking up, more and more people are getting ill from the needle, and as more and more people are realizing, hang on, we've been conned, those people are going to want to get together and do business with each other. They've already announced in places like Australia that they want to lock people up in internment camps. So we need to not bury our heads in the sand, but realize what war is, that they will give misinformation to us. They will lie and cheat on every front. So we need to understand that the opposite of love is fear, and they're using fear as the ultimate weapon. So if we are finding ourselves anything other than happy, we need to go back into confidence that it's not all going to go horrendously terrible, but it'll be all right, and try and bring that into the world and decide how we want to educate our children, that kind of stuff. Somebody mentioned fibromyalgia in the chat, and the answer, apart from things like vitamin C and vitamin D and magnesium, it might be that you also need selenium.
Selenium. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, we are coming to like you say, it is a where do you draw your line? Even people that have I know people that have just been needled, as you say, simply because they want to go away on holiday. I mean, the bribery, the coercion is incredible. I can't remember this coercion for anything. Even a twindemic, they even said, flu and COVID. It's just completely nuts, and it seems all contrived to me, I've got to say. But there's other things coming to play, the World Economic Forum, and then there's what's going off in Glasgow, the COP26 or whatever it is. God almighty, all getting in the planes and on the, hotels, and the number of people that are burning it, that have gone into Glasgow, and it's just incredible how people can't see it, and how hypocritical it is. Well, I think they can see it, but I think they just think, well, that's politicians, and we're all right now. You know that they're all bounders, don't we? So poor. It's just something we have to put up with. Always have to. Crazy.
Well, they're psychopaths in charge of the world, and we need to recognize that psychopaths are not to be trusted, and they're running everything. The CEOs of the big corporations, the government, they're all entrapped. Everybody who are the leaders of the unions are saying go on strike or whatever. That's just playing into their hands. We've got to keep business running, not to stop doing it. So,
yeah, well,
I'm optimistic, and everybody needs to stay optimistic despite the war clouds.
Well, of course, you've got to stay optimistic. I mean, there's no point in being pessimistic, is there? You've got to be optimistic and have a smile on your face no matter what. That'll get you through. If not, then listen to us on Raconteurs News. That certainly will get you through. I'll be back on Friday night at 9:30, and you'll be able to laugh. I've got some jokes written down that I've written. So I've got plenty of material to use on you. So on Friday night. Clive, before we finish, because we're sort of up to nearly 2 hours, very close to 2 hours, I'm a minute away, and it's been a very interesting show, and it has flown away. And we always say that, but it has. It has flown by. Somebody even put in the chat room, "Wow, it's been an hour already." Earlier on, obviously an hour ago. So tell everybody about your websites. Tell people where they can go when they want to find out more about you. Read your bio, perhaps. Just look at your stuff.
Right. It's myname.com. I'm not allowed to say it for legal reasons, but it's myname.com will find me, and secrethealthclub.com will find me.
Excellent. So clivedecarle.com is where you can find the man with no name who's sat just to, I don't know whether it's left or right. I can't work it out with these. Listen, big thanks to you, Clive, for coming on. And also thanks to Lou Collins, who set this up. Big thanks to her. It's been absolutely superb. I enjoyed you on the Wedby show the other night, but I did try to not take too much in because I knew that I got you on the following week, and I didn't know we do share a lot of listeners, so I hoped that we've covered different things, and it's been interesting for everybody. Thanks to you, Carl, and thanks to everybody who's been watching in the chat room. And if you're watching this afterwards, again, don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber, and click the notification bell as well, because people are not getting notifications, and it's happening to everybody. All right. So thank you very much to everyone. I'll see you Friday night. I've got some loads of new material, and I'll lay it on you. 9:30.